Yeah, this is a Tibetan icon. It's a deity, or they would call it a yidam, which means it's not like a kind of god that you would think of in terms of Mount Olympus or even the Christian god. It's actually Manjushri is his name or her name. It's probably more likely a her than a him. And I want you just to focus on what he's holding or what she's holding in her right hand, uh, the flaming sword, because we're going to work with the sword today as something helpful. And if you can see the left hand, it's right around where the heart is, and there's a diamond in it. There's a diamond in it. If you can blow it up, it's a little hard to see. He also has diamonds at other parts all over the thing. But those two images, but especially the sword today, especially the sword. Okay. Well, try to keep that image of the sword with you. And I I'll be giving you a little haiku triptych. Uh, a triptych is usually three holy pictures they're all connected, and so you have the three of them there. And this is a bit of a haiku triptych in words in haiku form. And if you don't know anything about haiku particularly, or if you want to learn more about it, there's my good friend Linda Rands, who's I think she's signed on today. She's doing uh, some sessions on this, and I think they'll be great. And you could actually, if you're interested, after you hear a few haikus, and if you get to feel for it that you want to do a little bit more, all I have to do is just send me just an email or a text that just says haiku in the subject, and I'll send you all the information, and you could get on board with this group. I think they have maybe 6 or 7 people that are sharing haiku and learning how to write haiku. It is a complete spiritual practice in itself. Basho was one of the great haiku writers, and he journeyed all through Japan. And every time he would enter a city, he would tack up a haiku or two that he wrote along the way. So it's a great practice. Uh, and if you're interested in it, uh, just send me the word haiku, and I'll get you in touch with Linda and all the information. I'll forward a lot of information, and then you can jump in with the group. They just started this week, but you can dive in. You won't be late. It'll always be the right time. Okay. Well, I'm going to give you a couple of these three holy pictures. Haiku are these little brief snapshots, and I'm just gonna. You can't explain haiku; that would destroy haiku. You really can't explain literature, but I'm going to pick out one image from these three haikus, and then that'll lead us to get a tool for meditation, hopefully. Okay, so this is a haiku triptych, and it'll be printed. If you resonated with one, but sort of want to see it again, it'll be printed tomorrow morning. These are three holy pictures in haiku form. You leave your slippers, but not your crazy ego, outside the zendo. You leave your slippers, but not your crazy ego, outside the zendo. Wield your velvet sword, sacred breath, word or image. Remember spirit. Wield your velvet sword, sacred breath, word or image. Remember spirit. Jewel in darkness. Lotus blooming in silence, tasting that which is. Jewel in darkness, Lotus blooming in silence, tasting that which is. Wielding your velvet sword. That's what we saw in the image. Manjusri is the image of that part of you that has the ability to cut through whatever you're tangled up with, whatever you're tangled up with. And it's sometimes called discriminating wisdom. Okay, discriminating awareness, awareness that can actually cut through when you're all tangled up with your emotional problems or some story or whatever, as we often are in meditation, and you're just caught. You might be in this or that. So this is a little bit of longer teaching poem on just this image of. I want you all to have a velvet sword in your toolbox, so that especially in meditation, whether wherever you find yourself trapped or caught or identified, you can use this velvet sword and then take a step back and you're back in just the frame, which has actually no edges of awareness. So here's a much longer poem, but it'll sort of, and then we'll actually walk ourselves into one aspect of this velvet sword. This is a sword that's a 3-in-1 kind of sword. It's a little bit like one of those Swiss Army knives, You got like at least 3 different blades you could use with this. And we're just going to work with one today, keeping it simple. So here's the poem, Your Velvet Sword. You're invited to let a sacred word come. Let a sacred word arise from your depths. Let a sacred word be delivered that holds the essence of your intention to become exactly who you are meant to be. A sacred word that is the essence of your intention, the essence of what you are consenting to be whenever you sit down in meditation. So the sacred word should be the essence of your intention when we sit down to meditate, when you sit down to meditate. It's so easy to get lost in even just a few minutes of meditation. For people who've been doing this for decades, all of a sudden you're doing your laundry. All of a sudden you're doing your shopping. All of a sudden you're trying to repair your marriage. It doesn't matter what it is. And so you need a sacred word. And this came to me out of the centering prayer practice I learned from Thomas Keating. The sacred word can bring you back. Let it come. That's what we're going to do. We'll have a little bit of time in a minute to just sit and if you don't have one, let a sacred word come. It'll come spontaneously from just the spirit of wisdom itself. You don't have to worry about it. Once the sacred word comes to you, paint it on the wall in the cave of the heart. It's like those early cave paintings. It's painted on the wall in your sacred heart. That acknowledges one of the functions of your sacred word. It's a kind of homing device. Whenever you feel confused or lost, you can always just breathe in slowly, deeply, breathe out your sacred word. It will remind you of who you are and what your real home is. So it's also a homing device as well as a sword. These things, again, it's a Swiss Army knife kind of concept. They do a lot of different things. So what am I doing here sitting for 20 minutes? Who am I? What's my real home? It can that a single word, a single syllable, even 1 or 2 syllable word, very simple. It reminds you, what do I intend to do during my sacred time here? Okay. Your sacred word will also be an invaluable tool when you're engaged in the practice uh, of just normal living, you can get lost in the middle of daily life. But when you're meditating, whether you're up in a tree, chattering with 100 monkeys are all around you, or really hooked on some juicy train of thought, you can always breathe out your sacred word, and it will act like a velvet sword. And I like the feel of velvet because it's so gentle. It's not like trying to um, with a meat cleaver or a baseball bat, knock that nonsense out of your head. No, it just goes with the breath too, which we'll work with the next week especially. But you can just breathe it out, and it's gentle, but it does cut the tangle, the thought tangle you're identified with at the moment. And it just sort of frees you to sort of step back, the Buddhists talk about when you're in meditation, you're taking a step back. We all think about progress, but the Buddhists, they talk about, well, when you're in meditation, you're taking a step back. And Buddha was a classic 5 on the Enneagram. So when you take a step back, you get a wider perspective, you see. So taking a step back out of the tangle of whatever you're identifying with. And then you're going into what's called witnessing consciousness. You're just witnessing. I call it the mirror of the heart. It's an image that I like. That image may or may not work for you, but you're stepping back a little bit, your sacred word, and the screen gets sort of cleared a little bit. Say, and you're not so tangled up with it. You can back off and you can see the tangle as it is. You don't have to fix it. You don't have to untangle it, but you're not in it anymore. You're not identified. That's the only problem with ego, is that you get totally identified with it most of the time. I mean, with all your crazy ego, as I said, you leave your slippers outside the Zendo, but we all bring our crazy ego into the Zendo, onto the cushion. There's no problem with that. But when you get all tangled up in it and you think that's who you are, that is a problem. That's suffering from a Buddhist standpoint. And from a Christian standpoint, my favorite, I spent a year and a half just translating the 8 lines of the prayer of the Lord's, what's known as the Lord's Prayer, from Aramaic into English. I spent a month to 6 weeks on every line, and my favorite line of all, which was the toughest line to work with, is the 6th line of the Lord's Prayer. Forgive us our sins as we forgive those who have trespassed against us. That line about forgiveness. And so the beautiful rendering that I came up with from working with that for so long was, listen to it. I think this is quintessential Jesus here. He said, untangle the knots of all misunderstanding and release our minds into the heart of mercy. Listen to that again, because this is, I think, what both Jesus and Buddha are after. Untangle the knots of all misunderstanding and release our minds into the heart of mercy. Beautiful. Yeah. And sometimes when you sit, it's just a tangle. It's chaos, monkey mind. That's okay. You just back off, and you take that step back, and the word can help you. When it's a little hard to let go of. And sometimes the word just comes up. I don't even know I'm tangled up, and the sacred word can come up. I just breathe it out. That's enough. Now, there's sometimes the word's not strong enough. The tangle is too strong. I'm too stuck, and so that's where I'm going to add a couple. Sometimes you will be at DEFCON 4 in the tangle. I mean, they're just it's like you're on the edge of just total insanity. I've come and go from that all the time. Well, sometimes the word is not enough, and so we'll talk next week and in the future weeks you could have. But the word is a strong thing. In the beginning was the word. See, so I think that's enough for today. What we want to do for a few minutes before I hit the bell and we start the formal 20 minutes of meditation, what I want to do today is just give you some time, and I'll just read you into a bit of silence to where you, if you don't have a word that you work with, you're a centering prayer person, practitioner, you would have a word. But, and if you do, like some of you are, well, you can just sit with that word, and that's your introduction. That for what you're about to do. But for those of us who don't have a sacred word, and it's only sacred because it untangles the mess and brings you back to that sacred space of just being the mirror of the heart, knowing who you are, knowing what's real, knowing where home is. Home is where the heart is. Bit of conventional wisdom that actually is true. Okay, so uh, yeah, so we can just let ourselves go into the silence, go into, shut your eyes, so you go inside for a little bit, and we have a little darkness, and then we'll have a little silence, and take a few minutes to just let this word come. And it may take whatever word comes, use it whenever you find it, and then there's no problem. The word can shift over time. Mine has, but whatever word comes to you can be a word that, why are you sitting here? Again, the sacred word is the essence of your intention in the time of sitting. Why are you here? What do you intend to do? How do you intend to be during our time of silence and stillness? So just let it come to you. We'll take a few minutes from this.